Thank you. Does somebody want to share their screen? I think you're able to do that. Does that make sense? Could somebody tell me that you are able to share your screen?
Yeah, we can share our screens.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Do we need to?
Nah, maybe we'll want to here in just a minute, but I just wanted to make sure that you were able to do that. Does somebody want to identify that that artistic rendition of a vegetable?
Artichoke?
Thank you very much. That is correct.
Onion.
Thank you very much. And this is for everybody.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Good. Well, good morning to everybody, and as always, I'm always very happy when you tune in to to class, even on days that are supposed to be asynchronous. And today we're going to be talking about the DBQ. Last time I had you do a little something with something called HIP, which is four different ways to get an extra point on the DBQ. And so you might remember, well, actually, let's go over what HIP could possibly be. What's the first H stand for in HIP?
Historical context.
Historical context.
Excellent. Yeah. So historical context, historical contextualization, you're really just providing a few sentences to describe the situation that leads us to what's being said in that particular document. So that's the H, first H. Then there's I in HIP.
Intended audience.
Perfect.
Intended audience.
Thank you very much. So, so intended audience. Doc, this is why people go to school. Their dogs bark. Yeah, intended audience. So once again, this document is written for a certain person, and so how are the contents of that document? I'm looking for something to throw at my dog. How is the content of the document related to the person to whom it's written for, if that makes sense? Like if you're going to write something to your mom, it's going to be no problem, no problem. Yeah, it's going to sound very different than something that's written to your friend, for example. It's that simple. So HIP, historical context, intended audience. What's the next P for in HIP?
Point of view.
Good. It's one or two of the other, right? So I'm going to go with purpose first. What is the purpose of the document? And you need to think about why that document's being written, and then once again relating it to the contents of the document. The document's going to have something in it that shows you as a historian that you understand the purpose based on what's being said or what the contents of the document is. And then the last P is point of view, or who that person is. Who that person is going to give us some insight into why that person is saying what they said. I went through those of you who turned in something to me on Friday for your HIP attempts. I generally looked at document number 3 and document number 4, and I tried to provide you just a little bit of feedback. I didn't give you any points or anything like that, but I gave you a little bit of feedback on what you had written, telling you whether it was point worthy or not, and then hopefully explaining why it wasn't point worthy, or giving you some hints as to what you might need to do to make it point worthy. And so this is the part where if we want to share something, we could do that really quickly. Those of you, I don't know, is it open for you to look at? Can you go and look at what you turned in on Friday and see see what I wrote for feedback?
We can.
Good. Can you do that really quickly? And then if you can see, generally I worked with number 3 and number 4. Number 3 being this was a report from a Jesuit to this Maximilian of Bavaria, the political ruler of this place, and he's explaining in this report how the conversion of Protestants is going. And so many of you did that and talked about the intended audience of Maximilian. You know, why is this particular report addressed to that guy? Why does it say what it says? Or the purpose of Bernhard Baumann's report? What's the deeper purpose? I know the purpose is to explain, you know, how the conversions are going, but if you look at the words that he uses, or kind of how he's describing the process, I think there's a bit of a purpose there that you can analyze. Or then his POV as a Jesuit would be another way of sort of us understanding why he's saying what he's saying. I think actually that's the easiest one. What do we know about Jesuits?
They're very Catholic.
Good. They're very Catholic, and so whatever he's going to be saying in this report is going to be from a very Catholic point of view. Let's get a little bit deeper than just very Catholic. What do Jesuits do that's different maybe than just other Catholic people?
They try to reconvert people back to Catholicism.
Exactly. So that's basically their thing, right? They're educators, they're preachers. They're really, the purpose of their existence is to help people, quite frankly, force people to be Catholic again, or to be Catholic in the first place, or to keep them Catholic. And so if you understand that, you can look at the contents of that document and you can see that, you know, he's got a very Jesuit-y point of view. You just have to explain that what Jesuits do, you know, what they're all about, and then maybe relate it to something that he's saying. Now, if you guys look at your feedback, did one of you have did one of you get that feedback as point worthy, like the POV of that particular thing was point worthy? And then would you like to share what you wrote to show everybody what point worthy point of view would look like for that document?
Is this for number 3?
It's for number 3, and then it's for the POV of Bernhard Baumann being a Jesuit. Did somebody have that as point worthy and would like to share?
I can do it, I guess.
Thank you, Everett.
Just 1 second.
Yep.
All right. Can you see the document?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
All right.
So right here.
There we go. So Bernhard Baumann is a Jesuit. The Jesuits were a new holy order that emerged from the Catholic Reformation, attempting to re-Catholicize Protestants through education. Perfect explanation of what a Jesuit does. This explains his motivations for holding sermons in the newly conquered districts, as well as his frustrations, right? His document is really about the frustration of getting these Protestants to comply. So that right there looks to me to be perfectly point worthy for HIP. Remember, for HIP, you have to do this 3 times. You have to, throughout your DBQ, 3 times, you have to use some sort of HIP successfully. It can be a mixture, like one document could be a point of view kind of document, a different document you could be doing historical context, and a third document you could be doing intended audience. So if you can get 3 of those done correctly, you're going to be getting 1 of the 7 points. Let's go to, does somebody have one for the purpose of the document? In other words, what is, why is the document the way that it is? What's the purpose of that document? And then relating it hopefully a little bit to the contents of the document. Did somebody get that one as point worthy as well? Document 3, Bernhard Baumann, his purpose in providing this report.
Yeah, can I just say it, or should I share my screen?
Either way, I'd be okay. Either way.
Okay, I said the purpose of this letter is clearly to boast about their efforts in converting Protestants in Bavaria. He explains how they convert a large number of people, and even says and even as he says, people who were going to immigrate, if forced to convert, they were able to convert.
Yeah, Sam, I like the part about the boasting. You look at the contents of that document, and he really seems to be boasting that they're converting all of these people. There's also a bit of frustration there, and that some of them are not converting. That it's proving to be more difficult, and so relating, that content part of the document to the purpose, I think is point worthy as well. So nice job. The first one is kind of similar to that. It's intended audience. So you've got this Maximilian of Bavaria. He's the political ruler of Bavaria. Does somebody have an idea of why the contents are a certain way based on Maximilian being the intended recipient of this report? That was maybe point worthy, and you'd like to share that. Okay, I'm not getting you takers. But yeah,
I could do mine.
Go for it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
Okay, so I said, this letter is a report to Elector Maximilian of Bavaria, who clearly wants and intends to re-Catholicize the lands won in the 30 Years' War because of the author's positive, gloating tone. Baumann, the author, is proud because he knows this elimination of heresy is what the elector is striving for with this war.
Love it. So it's crafted in a way to please this guy who is, who's taken over these territories. This guy is Catholic. This guy is the political ruler. This guy wants everyone to be Catholic, and so this is why the contents are the way that they are. Lovely. I like that a lot. I'll be honest with you guys. I think that HIP HIP as a point is difficult to get, because you have to do this, like I said, successfully 3 times. It requires a little bit of analysis and so on. You want to do HIP right after you use the document in your body paragraph. In other words, you use the document in your body paragraph to support your thesis, and then you're being a historian, and you are kind of giving an aside as to why this document says this particular thing based on historical context, what happened right before this, leading up to it, who the intended audience is, or the purpose, or the who that person is. You can do it any one of those ways. There's a lot of choice there, but as I said, it's a little bit difficult. What questions do you maybe have for me about HIP that I could hopefully answer?
So for the DBQ, you need one of any of the four, right?
You can use any of those 4 different ways of getting it done.
And then you have to do it for 3 documents.
For 3
right?
documents, yeah. So it's a complete mix and match sort of thing. You could do all historical context. You could do all.
Okay.
It's up to you. It's just your
That's what I
choice.
was wondering.
However you want to do that. What you don't want to do is do all 4 of them for one document and think that you need to do all 4 for one doc. I mean, you would spend your entire hour that you have on your DBQ just just doing that. So this is it's something that's doable, but I think it's kind of a harder thing to get done. I think you're working a lot harder to get a point than to create a thesis that answers the question. Both of those things are worth 1 point. Or doing contextualization, for example, at the very beginning of things. Both of those things are worth 1 point. I think it's a lot easier to get the contextualization point than to do 3 HIPs in order to get 1 point eventually. So, don't obsess about HIP. I think I kind of obsess about HIP because it's difficult to teach how exactly to do it, and then it's difficult to exactly explain to you when it reaches the point worthiness and when it doesn't. So anyway, okay. Any other questions about HIP? All right, let's go on then. What I'd like to do is I'd like for you to take notes as I come up with. I'm going to type some stuff on a Google Doc. I'd like you to write this stuff down. I could just share this Google Doc with you, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I really want you to write so that it starts to get stuck in your mind as what you need to do as you do a DBQ. And then tomorrow I'll give you a chance to work on a different DBQ. You guys are probably sick of the 30 years for DBQ by this point in time. So I'll give you a chance tomorrow to work on a completely different DBQ. So if you've got your notebooks, if you've got your pen and pencil out, that would be nice. I'm going to present to you and do a Google Doc here in just a second. And as always, please jump in if you have any kinds of questions or anything or comments. Okay. How to do the DBQ. Okay, so when you get a DBQ, the first thing that you want to do is read the prompt. And the prompt is going to ask you, some sort of question. I think the last one was, to what extent the 30 Years' War was a religious conflict, and to what extent it was a political conflict. And so usually there is something like that where you're trying to figure out, is it this or is it that? Or you might have to come up with these sort of categories yourself. But I think the next thing you do after you read the prompt is to figure out what it is that you're supposed to be looking for. And I like to try to chart things. For example, when we did the 30 Years' War, is it more political or is it more religious? And then as I read the documents, I tried to come up with that. And then that was giving me some sort of framework for how I was going to be using the different documents, religious documents, political documents. We could, I think, look at, actually, why don't you do that? I'm gonna sit here. If you can look in Schoology, at the very bottom of our Schoology page, I have put a DBQ. I'm gonna go there too. So, check out at the bottom of our Schoology page, I've got this 2017 DBQ. If you want to open that up too, hopefully it works for you. This is a whole bunch of stuff, but we need to get down to the DBQ, and the DBQ starts on page, looks like page, here it is, on page 7 of that. So this is the one that we're going to be playing around with for the next bit of time. And you can see that here's the question for this particular one. You can go ahead and maybe jot this down or think about this. It says, evaluate whether or not the glorious revolution of 1688 can be considered part of the Enlightenment. So if you're charting on that, what do you think your chart's going to look like?
One side says arguments for it being part of the Enlightenment. One side says against.
Yeah, I would think it's something like that. Parts for the Enlightenment, parts against the Enlightenment. Maybe once we start reading the documents, we can say, oh, you know, I think there's something different here. Maybe it's you're looking at it and you're thinking the Enlightenment is ABC or XYZ, and you're looking for things that would fit into the Enlightenment, like political enlightenment or religious enlightenment or crime and punishment enlightenment or education enlightenment, and then looking for things that don't seem so enlightened, maybe. Okay, so that is there for you guys to fool around with. I'll go back to my document, hopefully. Here. Oh, here we are. Okay, so you're coming up with some way of charting, you know, enlightenment, yes, no, or enlightenment religion, enlightenment politics, or what have you. And then, of course, you simply, once you've come up with your chart, you start to read the documents and apply them to the chart, if that makes sense to you. Buzzing through the documents, you read through all documents, you're trying to find a place for them, you're trying to figure out how you're going to use them. And then I think what you need to do is write a thesis. And what's my advice going to be to you when you write the thesis?
Recycle the prompt.
I love that. Thank you so much. Recycle the prompt. I think if you recycle the prompt, it'll set you up to answer the question more closely to the spirit of the prompt. So recycle the prompt. Can somebody do that really quickly? What would the recycling of the prompt perhaps start to look like?
It would be like the Glorious Revolution was part of the Enlightenment because,
or was
not part of the Enlightenment because.
Fantastic. Good. I love that. And so the because is so important. And you've come up with the because by reading through the documents and putting things in the chart. Because X and Y, or maybe it's, you know, it's not because of X and Y, or maybe it is partially a part of the Enlightenment because of this, but on the other hand, it's not because of something else. Does that make sense? I feel a chorus of unsaid yeses. So good. So we've read the prompt. We've probably even written down what the prompt was, or when we did our chart, we had the prompt written down too, so that as you did your chart, you weren't off base somehow. You're really trying to figure out to what extent it was part of the Enlightenment. You read through the docs, you read your thesis, you recycled your prompt, and you had your because, and then you had maybe 2 to 3 ideas. It is because this, or it isn't because of this, 2 to 3 ideas. And those 2 to 3 ideas are going to be your paragraphs. Thinking about how we've done this in the past, what's the next thing you probably need to write? It's okay if I don't get an answer, I'll just go ahead and tell you. I would go ahead then, once you figured out what your thesis is, I would go ahead and write my contextualization. And remember that contextualization is written before your thesis. In the sense of it, when you are writing your DBQ, the first thing that I'm going to see is your contextualization in the very first paragraph, and then right underneath that, seamlessly moving into it, I hope, is your actual thesis statement. That's going to be paragraph 1 of your actual DBQ. What is the contextualization again? What the heck is that? What are we supposed to be doing with that?
Flexing our history knowledge.
Yeah, and how does it relate to the prompt? In other words, if you remember when we did the 30 years war DBQ and we were attempting to do contextualization, I said, okay, you could talk about what's going on that leads us to the 30 years war in about 5 statements or 5 sentences, 3, 4, 5 sentences. You know, starting off big, maybe with Luther's. Reformation and then sort of getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where we get to the 30 Years' War. We also had the idea of we're trying to figure out whether this is a religious conflict or a political conflict. So you could also go big, talking about the Protestant Reformation in general and how it started to create religious warfare or the wars of religion. Or you could talk about, in terms of politics, the new monarchies and how the new monarchs are trying to seize more control over XYZ and religion, and then sort of seamlessly moving to your thesis statement. If we look at this particular prompt, I think your contextualization could be, well, if you look at it, what 2 things really stick out to you that you could be talking about leading to this prompt or to this DBQ?
What is the Glorious Revolution or Enlightenment?
Exactly. So you talk about the Glorious Revolution. So if you know something about English history in the 17th century, if you know 5 sentences worth of knowledge, first big and then going small, to get us to the Glorious Revolution of 1688, that would be wonderful. Or maybe easier, I don't know, would be giving me 5 sentences about how the Enlightenment starts and what the Enlightenment is, and then getting us to 1688. I think either one of those things are possible. I think too, with your thesis statement, if you decided that your thesis statement was something about how something about religion, and I think it's you're going to see right away when you start to read this DBQ that there's this whole religious element that doesn't seem to be very enlightened at all. And so maybe your contextualization has to do with that particular part of your argument. Maybe it has to do with religious toleration and or the lack of religious toleration contextually for 200 years before the Glorious Revolution starts. Anyway, you could do anything like that, but it's going to be about 5 sentences, I hope, and starting off big and then kind of getting smaller and smaller until you're seamlessly moving into your DBQ. Any questions about contextualization?
And you said it was going to be like 4 to 5 sentences, so just like a paragraph.
Yeah, I think it is. It depends on how long your sentences are. I think 4 to 5 sentences are an ideal amount. I've had people write 3/4 of a page on contextualization, which seems really foolish just from a time point of view. So 4 to 5 sentences should get you there, I think, depending on what those sentences are. And once again, you want to start as broad as possible and then move towards 1688 or move towards, how this is a part of the Enlightenment, or move towards whatever it is that your thesis statement is. So contextualization, thesis statement, that's all in paragraph 1. And your thesis statement, is recycling the prompt with giving me 2 to 3 ideas. Boom, you're there. You could potentially have 2 points out of 7 right now by having a contextualization and thesis statement. And 2 out of 7, I can't remember exactly what that is, but I think it's probably a 75% in this class. So there, that hopefully that's a good thing for you. When we get into paragraph number 2, do you remember what I desperately want to see as the first sentence of paragraph 2?
No.
Good. Okay. The first sentence I want to see, and this is, well, the first sentence that I want to see is your first argument. I'd really, you can write the exact same. See my 2 to 3 ideas that it says there. You could write the exact same sentence if you want to. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 is part of the Enlightenment because idea number 1. So recycle. Thesis idea 1. I'll be honest with you, and I think you know this too. This is very it's kind of very basic to do that. It seems kind of repetitive to do that. If you're a more accomplished writer, or if you're a better writer, you're probably going to give me your recycled thesis idea number 1 with slightly different words, but I think for getting points in a DBQ, you want to keep it simple. The worst sin you could commit, I think, is not telling me what this paragraph is about. You might jump right into a document, trying to use a document right away. But if I don't know where you're going, if I don't have that first sentence of that paragraph to tell me what the whole paragraph is about, then I'm going to be lost, and you don't want me to be lost. You want to make sure that I know exactly where you're going idea-wise, and then prove what your thesis idea number 1 is using documents. So hopefully you're recycling that thesis idea straight from your thesis, and then you're using, I would say 2 to 3. You are using 2 to 3 documents to support or prove your idea. Every time that you use a document, you're showing me how that document is proving the idea that it is a part of the Enlightenment because, or it's not a part of the Enlightenment because. It's your words, it's your ideas. You know, it's a chance for you to shine. What you don't want to do is just tell me what the document says. You need to be using analysis. You need to be showing me how this word or this phrase or this sentence in the document proves that this is part of the Enlightenment, or proves that it isn't. I say using 2 to 3 documents. How many documents do you have to use? How many documents do you have to use in some way to get 1 point? Do you remember that? In your whole DBQ.
Was it 6?
6 is, let's go easier. All you need is 3 documents. If you are attempting to do something with 3 documents, attempting to prove what you believe is a thesis using 3 documents, you're going to get 1 point. It's that simple. If you use 6 documents, and those 6 documents are doing what I said, if they are proving or are supporting your thesis, that's another point. So using 3 documents, another easy way of getting 1 more point. If you're at 3 points, you're in the B range, and you can drop your mic and walk away if you want to. Use 6 documents in total correctly, and using them to support your thesis, it's going to get you another point. 4 points. I think 4 points, I think it's like an A- at this point in time, 4 out of 7. So if you can use 6 documents, it's going to be wonderful. But please use those documents in order to, once again, support or prove your idea. Oftentimes, students just explain what a document says, but don't link it to how it proves their thesis statement or proves their idea. So not good. You want to make sure that you're doing that. Basically, that's your second paragraph. Your third paragraph is exactly the same thing, just using your second idea. So I'm just going to copy and paste. So, paragraphs are, this sounds crazy for me to say, but paragraphs are separated in some way, shape, or form from the thing that came before it. How would I know, for example, that your second paragraph is beginning?
An indent?
An indent would be wonderful. A space between the first and the second would be wonderful. Any way, shape, or form. What I don't want to see is a giant blob of writing where I don't see any kind of organization whatsoever. It might be there, but you guys are good writers. You guys have hopefully, you just need to be reminded that you need to, in some way, shape, or form, separate things out. And then, of course, once again, you remember that your paragraphs are together for some sort of reason. Ideally, I need to change this ever so slightly. Ideally, your paragraph has to do with, that first idea or that second idea about how the Glorious Revolution is part of the Enlightenment or not. So you would have, let's see, at this point in time, you have 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. You might be, organizationally speaking, done. You don't need a conclusion of any kind. That's not going to get you any points. And so if you have 3 paragraphs, contextualization thesis statement is paragraph 1, proving your first idea using the second paragraph as the second paragraph, then the third paragraph, recycling your thesis idea, and then proving idea number 2 would be wonderful. There's some other ways of getting points, of course, within these paragraphs themselves. We talked about HIP, right? And so at some point in time, you want to attempt to do HIP within those paragraphs. Your choice. Once again, how many times do you have to do HIP in total successfully to get 1 more point?
3?
3. Perfect. Yes. 3 HIPs successfully done will get you a point. There's another thing that I would like to see within either the second paragraph or the third paragraph, and that thing is called evidence beyond documents. Evidence beyond the documents can be in your second body or in your body paragraph, so your second paragraph or the third, doesn't really matter. Once again, what evidence beyond the documents is some sort of fact from your head, from your knowledge, that proves that whatever your thesis idea is. So you've got all these documents that the College Board is giving you or that I'm giving you, and you're using those documents to prove that, the Glorious Revolution was part of the Enlightenment because, well, you have some sort of idea in your head, you have some sort of knowledge in your head that supports the idea that the Glorious Revolution is part of the Enlightenment or isn't. And it's about 3 sentences long. It's not just one sentence. It's about 3 sentences long, and once again, it's just information that you know in your head that would support that. This evidence beyond the document point, if you know something, is, I think, fairly easy to get. But if you think about when we did the 30 Years' War DBQ, did you know something? Did you know anything that would support the contention that it's political or religious? I don't know. Do you know anything about British history that would prove that the Enlightenment is part of the Glorious Revolution or not? It just kind of comes up. Do you know it or not? So let me recount very quickly. So contextualization would be 1 point. The thesis statement would be 1 point. Using 3 documents to support your thesis statement would be 1 point. Using 6 documents and supporting would be another point. And then you've got evidence beyond the documents as well. And then you've got HIP. That gets us to 6 points. And I think that's what we should concentrate on right now. What questions do you have for me?
Where do we put evidence beyond the documents?
It is in your body paragraph. It can be in the supporting idea 1, or it can be supporting idea 2. Wherever, I would put it probably towards either in the middle or at the end. I don't think you want to start your. I don't think that you want to start your paragraph with your own knowledge. I think use something from a document and then throw in evidence beyond the documents, or use 2 to 3 documents and then you throw in your evidence beyond the documents. I think that would be most successful, because you've already used a couple documents to prove your point, and now here comes your evidence to prove that point as well.
Mr. Barron,
Yes,
can we use this list when we are writing it?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, use this list, have the rubric next to you, every aid that you could possibly use in order to write the DBQ would really be, I think, quite helpful.
Okay, and then also, I have one more question.
Yes.
Would we write like a small conclusion at the end?
I don't think that's necessary, and if you're doing this successfully, I don't think you'll have time.
Okay.
I think time is always really quite stretched when you're writing a DBQ, because you're trying to do all of these things, trying to get all these things done. And quite frankly, you've had to read these somewhat long documents, and you had to kind of figure out what your thesis is, and you had to figure out what your contextualization is. Hopefully you're done planning everything, reading everything, planning everything in the first 15 minutes, and then spending about 45 minutes actually writing things. And I think I would plan things out in that way, because if you just don't plan anything out, usually you repeat yourself a lot and you don't get to the points that you want, and so on and so forth. So try to plan for about 15 minutes and write for about 45 minutes. I think it's the ideal way to do it. Other questions?
When will we be doing this for real, and will we have any more practices?
Yes. So tomorrow is a practice day, and so what we're going to be doing for tomorrow is looking at this Glorious Revolution DBQ, and what I want to see is, and I'll put this in the directions for tomorrow, but I think what I want to see is this bit right here. I'd like to see you come up with a contextualization and a thesis statement, and then also using your first paragraph, or writing your first paragraph. I don't need to see the whole DBQ. I don't want you to spend that much time doing it, and I don't want to have to read all of that. But I think if you created a contextualization and a thesis statement, and then a whole new paragraph, which would have your thesis recycled, and then using probably 3 documents to support your idea, and maybe 1 attempt at HIP, and then if you have an evidence beyond the documents, you could also attempt that as well. That'll be tomorrow, what you'll be working on tomorrow, and then I will, well, yeah, I think that's probably doable. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's probably doable for tomorrow. And then if you can get that into me at some point early, like if you could get it to me tomorrow would be great. If you can get it to me Wednesday, that would be great. I know we don't have school officially, but I would have some time then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to look at everybody's stuff, and then provide some feedback for you. I think that would be good. And then my intent is to do the DBQ probably after the next multiple choice test, which is kind of mid-December. So DBQ at some point in time, mid-December. Real DBQ for class 4 points. What questions do you have for me? Perfect. What? Go ahead.
Oh, how many summative points is it worth again?
It's the most weighty thing that we do in class. So I'm going to say, I don't remember offhand, but I'm going to say it's like 17% of your grade, maybe.
Okay. And okay, let's do a theoretical where the AP test happens in person.
Yeah.
And it's like a really short online thing.
Yep.
How many of these DBQs would we be doing?
You'll be doing 1 DBQ, and it is also the most weighty thing that you would be doing. It's like, I think it's something like 30% of your, of 28%, 30% of the whole grade. You do a number of, you do 3 SAQs, you do a multiple choice test, you do a DBQ, and you do an LEQ, and that's the whole test. Any other questions? Cool. If you were here today, then you're great. This was your ABA. If if you weren't, I'm speaking to people who aren't here, but hopefully they're doing the reading and doing the reading quiz. Tomorrow, I will just tell you what exactly to do for the actual Glorious Revolution DBQ, and you can work on that tomorrow. And then maybe I'll just give you a thing like, yes, I worked on my DBQ, yes, no, kind of thing for your ABA, and then hopefully you can turn that into me Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I don't know. Got anything going on Thursday? And then I'll have a look at them, provide you guys with some feedback. Let me go back to where you're at. Sound good?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Good. It was so nice. No, so nice that you all showed up today. Anything else?
No.
Perfect. Then I wish you a very happy day, and go forth and do your thing.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hill.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.